There comes a time in life when the weight of our pain feels unbearable. Wounds, some seen, some hidden, begin to shape our thoughts, our actions, our very identity. We walk around carrying burdens we were never meant to hold, convincing ourselves that we have to figure it all out alone. But healing was never meant to be a lonely journey. It was never meant to be a battle fought in silence. There is a force greater than all the pain, greater than all the questions, greater than all the scars that life has etched into our hearts. It is the force that spoke the universe into being, the force that breathed life into dust, the force that continues to whisper to the broken-hearted, "You are not forgotten." Healing is not about erasing the past. It's not about pretending the pain never existed. It's about stepping into a love so deep that even the most shattered soul can be restored. It's about trusting that there is a presence working behind the scenes, piecing together every broken fragment into something beautiful. The very breath that sustains us carries the promise that we were made for more than suffering. Life will break you, there's no escaping that. But what if the breaking is not the end of the story? What if the breaking is only the beginning of something greater? Every scar, every tear, every moment of despair, none of it is wasted. The hands that shaped the stars are the same hands that can reshape a heart, and not just mend it, but make it whole in a way that it never was before. Healing begins when we surrender, when we stop trying to outrun our pain and instead lean into the presence of something far greater than ourselves. It happens in the quiet moments when our hearts cry out in exhaustion and we are met with the stillness of an unfailing love. A love that does not demand perfection but simply says, "Come as you are." There is no wound too deep, no past too messy, no heart too broken. Restoration is not a question of possibility, it is a promise. A promise that we are seen, we are held, and we are never ever alone. There is a certain heaviness that comes with suffering, a weight that presses down on the soul, making even the simplest moments feel impossible to endure. When pain lingers too long, when questions go unanswered, when the road ahead seems endlessly uncertain, it's easy to believe that we are in this alone. We convince ourselves that healing is something we must figure out on our own, that strength means silence, that resilience is about carrying it all without breaking. But what if healing was never meant to be a solitary battle? The very presence that formed the universe did not create life to be lived in isolation. The force that set the stars in place, that breathed life into dust, that crafted the intricate details of existence, also shaped the human heart to be held, to be seen, to be restored. Not by sheer willpower, but by something greater. Healing is not about pushing through alone. It is about surrendering to the truth that we were never meant to. There is a love that meets the broken places, a presence that does not shy away from pain but walks straight into it, carrying the burdens too heavy for human hands. It is not a distant force waiting for perfection before offering peace. It is the still, quiet voice that whispers in the darkest moments, the unseen strength that lifts when all feels lost, the unwavering grace that reminds us we are not abandoned. The world will tell you that healing is about time, about distractions, about filling the emptiness with noise and motion. But real healing begins in stillness, in surrender, in the realization that we do not have to hold it all together. There is something, someone far greater than our pain, willing to carry what we cannot. When we stop believing that healing is something we must achieve and instead allow ourselves to be held, something shifts. The weight begins to lift, not because the pain never existed, but because it no longer defines us. To heal is not to forget, nor is it to erase the past. To heal is to trust that even the most shattered soul can be restored. It is to believe that we are not alone in our struggle, that we are not unseen, that the love that created us is the love that sustains us. The hands that shape the universe are the same hands that reach for us in our brokenness, not with judgment, but with a promise. You were never meant to do this alone. There is something powerful about knowing that even when life feels like it's falling apart, something greater is still holding it all together. In the chaos of unanswered prayers, in the silence of heartbreak, in the moments when we feel abandoned by life itself, there is still a presence working behind the scenes. Just because we cannot see it does not mean it is not there. Just because we do not understand the plan does not mean there isn't one. Think about the way the ocean waves continue to move even when no one is watching. Think about the way the sun rises whether or not we wake up to see it. There is an order, a rhythm, a force that keeps everything in motion, and it does not stop simply because we are in pain. In the same way, healing is happening even when we cannot feel it. Every tear, every silent prayer, every night spent wondering if things will ever change is seen by something greater than ourselves, and that presence is not passive, it is working, shaping, restoring, even in ways we do not yet understand. Life has a way of convincing us that if we cannot see progress, there is none. But the greatest transformations do not happen in plain sight. A seed grows in darkness before it breaks through the soil. A wound closes beneath the surface before it ever looks healed from the outside. And just because we do not see the healing happening does not mean it isn't. The same presence that formed the universe is at work in every broken piece of our hearts, turning pain into purpose, turning suffering into strength, turning confusion into clarity. If only we trust the process. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when fear whispers that we have been forgotten. But if we silence the noise, if we lean into the stillness, we will feel it, that unshakable, undeniable presence reminding us that we are held, that we are loved, that healing is not a possibility but a certainty. Even when life feels out of control, even when nothing makes sense, we can rest in the truth that there is something greater orchestrating every detail for our good. Healing is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting the hands that have been guiding us all along. Life will break you. That is not a possibility. It is a certainty. No one walks through this world untouched by pain. At some point, we all feel the sting of loss, the weight of disappointment, the ache of a heart that has been wounded one too many times. When suffering comes, it is tempting to believe that it is the end of the story, that what is broken will remain broken, that the pain we feel today is the pain we will carry forever. But what if that is not true? What if the breaking is not the end, but the beginning of something greater? Pain has a way of narrowing our vision, making us believe that all we can see is all there is. When we are in the depths of suffering, it is hard to imagine a way out. It is hard to believe that anything good could come from it. But the very presence that breathed life into the universe is not in the business of leaving things shattered. It is in the business of restoration, of renewal, of turning even the most painful experiences into something beautiful. What feels like an ending to us is often just the turning of a page, the start of a new chapter we never expected. There is no suffering too great, no wound too deep, no failure too final that it cannot be transformed. The greatest stories of redemption are not written in comfort, but in struggle. The most powerful transformations do not happen when life is easy, but when everything falls apart and something greater steps in to put it back together. What if the very thing we thought would break us is the thing that will make us stronger? What if the pieces of our brokenness are not meant to be discarded, but are being reshaped into something even more beautiful? Healing does not mean forgetting the pain. It does not mean pretending that the struggle never happened. It means allowing a greater force to take what was meant to destroy us and use it to build us instead. It means believing that even in our worst moments, we are not abandoned. Even when everything seems lost, there is still a plan, still a purpose, still a promise, that the story is not over yet. The breaking is never the end. It is only the beginning of something new. Healing is not about erasing the past. It is not about pretending that the pain never existed or forcing ourselves to forget the wounds that shaped us. Too often we believe that moving forward means leaving it all behind, as if the past is something shameful, something to bury deep so it no longer haunts us. But healing is not about running away. It is about transforming the very pain that tried to break us. There is a presence that does not ask us to ignore our scars, but invites us to see them differently. Every wound tells a story, every hardship has a lesson, every broken piece of our heart carries wisdom we would never have gained otherwise. The force that holds the universe together does not erase pain, it redeems it. It takes what was meant to destroy us and turns it into strength. It takes the nights we thought we wouldn't survive and uses them to build a faith that cannot be shaken. True healing happens when we stop fighting our past and start allowing it to shape us into something new. It does not mean that the pain disappears overnight. but it means that pain no longer has control over us. We are not defined by what happened to us. We are defined by what we choose to do with it. And we can choose to see our past not as something that destroyed us, but as something that prepared us for the life we were meant to live. There is nothing we have gone through that is wasted. Every tear, every heartbreak, every moment of despair has led us to this point, to this moment where we have a choice: to let the past chain us down or to let it shape us into something greater. The presence that sees every hidden wound is not asking us to forget, but to surrender, to trust that even the darkest chapters of our lives can be rewritten into something beautiful. Healing does not come from denial. It comes from acceptance, from grace, from allowing ourselves to be rebuilt into something stronger than we ever imagined. There is a deep longing within every human heart, a longing to be seen, to be known, to be loved without condition. And yet too often we convince ourselves that love must be earned, that we must become something more before we are truly worthy of healing. We carry our wounds in silence, afraid that if anyone knew the depth of our struggles, they would turn away. We believe that we must fix ourselves before we can be embraced, that we must be strong before we can be supported. But love, the kind that heals, the kind that restores, was never meant to be conditional. There is a presence that has never asked for perfection, never demanded that we come whole, never required that we hide the brokenness before stepping into its embrace. It simply says, "Come as you are," in the mess, in the pain, in the questions, in the moments when we feel most unworthy. There is nothing too shattered, nothing too complicated, nothing too far gone that would make us unworthy of love. The very force that created us knew every part of us before we even took our first breath, and yet it still calls us beloved. Healing begins the moment we stop trying to earn love and simply allow ourselves to receive it. It is not found in striving, but in surrender. It is not found in pretending to have it all together, but in admitting that we do not. The weight of shame, of guilt, of past mistakes cannot exist in the presence of love so deep that it chooses us over and over again, despite everything. The kind of love that heals does not wait until we feel worthy. It makes us worthy. So many of us spend our lives waiting until we are better, until we are stronger, until we feel like we deserve to be healed. But what if healing was never about being good enough? What if the only thing we needed to do was open our hearts to the love that has been reaching for us all along? The presence that formed the stars is the same presence that calls us home, not with judgment, but with open arms. Healing does not begin when we are perfect. It begins the moment we stop running and allow ourselves to be held. There is a voice that echoes in the hearts of the broken, a whisper that asks, "Is there any hope for me?" It is the question we rarely say out loud but carry deep within us, fearing that our pain is too deep, our past too messy, our mistakes too great to ever be redeemed. We look at our wounds and convince ourselves that they define us, that healing is for others but not for us. But what if that is a lie? What if the very thing we believe disqualifies us is the very thing that makes us worthy of restoration? There is a presence that does not turn away from brokenness but steps into it, a love so vast, so unshakable, that it sees every scar, every failure, every regret, and still chooses us. There is nothing too damaged, nothing too lost, nothing too shattered that it cannot be made whole. The same hands that shape the mountains, that place the stars in the sky, are the same hands that can rebuild a heart from ruins. And not just repair it, but restore it in a way that it becomes even stronger than before. The world tells us that some wounds never heal, that some stories don't get a happy ending, but the force that breathed life into existence does not leave things unfinished. The pain we thought would break us is often the very thing that leads us to transformation. The suffering we thought would destroy us becomes the birthplace of our greatest strength. There is no darkness that cannot be overcome, no wound that cannot be redeemed. Healing is not a possibility, it is a promise. No matter how far we have fallen, no matter how lost we feel, there is a presence that never stops calling us home. It does not ask us to be perfect, to have all the answers, or to pretend the pain never existed. It simply asks us to trust that there is still a purpose for us, still a future beyond the hurt, still a love that will never let us go. The wounds may be deep, but the love that restores is deeper. The past may be heavy, but the grace that heals is greater. And when we finally surrender to that truth, we begin to see that there is no such thing as too broken to be made whole again. There are moments in life when the silence feels unbearable, when the weight of our struggles makes us feel invisible. We carry our pain in quiet desperation, wondering if anyone truly sees us, if anyone truly understands. The loneliness of suffering is often worse than the suffering itself, the feeling that no one could possibly comprehend the depth of what we are going through. And in those moments, doubt creeps in like a shadow, whispering that we are alone, that no one is coming, that we have to figure this out by ourselves. But what if that isn't true? What if even in our most isolated moments, we are never truly alone? There is a presence that is never left, never turned away, never abandoned us. Not in our failures, not in our doubts, not in our darkest nights. It is the same presence that was with us in our first breath and will be there in our last. The same force that holds the universe together is holding us, even when we cannot feel it. It is not a presence that waits on the outside, watching from a distance. It is a presence that steps into our pain, that walks with us through the fire, that whispers to our weary hearts, I am with you. We may not always understand the process of healing. We may not always see the way forward, but we are not meant to navigate this journey alone. There is a love that goes before us, a strength that surrounds us, a grace that carries us when we can no longer stand on our own. And in the moments when we feel forgotten, when we wonder if our cries are even heard, we must remember this. We have never been unseen, never been unheard, never been unloved. Even in silence, we are being held. Even in uncertainty, we are being guided. The pain may last for a season, the road may be long, but there is a presence that never lets go. The love that created us is the love that sustains us, and it will never leave us. Not for a moment, not for a breath. No matter how lost we feel, no matter how heavy the burden, we do not walk this path alone. We never have, we never will. Healing is not a destination we arrive at, nor is it a task to be completed. It is a journey, a process of being continually restored, continually renewed, continually reminded that we are never beyond repair. The road is not always easy, and there will be days when the weight of the past feels unbearable. There will be moments when we question whether we are truly healing at all, when the scars seem too deep and the wounds too fresh. But the presence that holds the universe together is the same presence that holds us in our brokenness, refusing to let pain be the end of our story. There is no wound too great, no past too painful, no heart too shattered, that it cannot be mended by a love that knows no limits. True healing does not erase the past but transforms it. It takes every tear, every hardship, every battle fought in silence and weaves them into something greater than we ever imagined. The very things that once brought us to our knees become the foundation for a strength we never knew we had. The very darkness we thought would consume us becomes the space where light breaks through. If there is one truth to hold on to, it is this: you are not alone. You never were. Even in the moments when life felt unbearable, when the silence was deafening, when the prayers seemed unanswered, something greater was always at work. Healing does not mean that we never feel pain again, but it does mean that pain no longer has the final say. It means that even in the hardest seasons, we are being held, carried, guided towards something better than we could have ever planned for ourselves. The presence that formed you, that knows every hidden part of you, is the same presence that walks with you now. It is not asking you to be perfect. It is not waiting for you to have it all figured out. It is simply asking you to trust, to surrender, to believe that even the most broken things can be made whole. And as you take one step at a time on this journey of healing, may you always remember, you are seen, you are loved, and you are never, ever alone.